Danielle Futrell, and welcome to my workplace. Just as easily as it could be a classroom with a whiteboard just like this one, it might be a cow pasture, a greenhouse, an orange grove, or even a softball stadium. Because I will be entering the diverse and unique field of agricultural education. As an agricultural educator, I plan to prepare my students for a lifetime of informed choices and decisions, possibly even a career within the agricultural, food, and natural resources industries. I'm excited to share some with you about agricultural education, as well as intercultural experiences in the workplace, how I'm preparing myself for a career in agricultural education, how I'm branding myself and sharing that with others, and what some personal experiences I've had that I believe will carry over into my future career. Welcome to the classroom. Different ideas and perspectives between individuals of all sorts of backgrounds, whether they're from somewhere across the world or simply from a different location in your town. Cultures are different everywhere. And that's a key word I'd like to really pick on for just a second. When we think about culture, I think about diversity. And I know that in a classroom, at least, some of the diversity that we see is outright. I immediately can tell that because of someone's culture, they eat a certain food, they dress a certain way, or maybe they even have a certain skin tone. But some pieces of culture you can't really see quite that easily. You've got to get to know the individual and listen more than you talk to be able to understand, how does this person view society, the educational system? What role does their family play in their life? We've all got similarities, but because of our individual cultures, we all have differences as well. And so how this will be able to carry over into my workplace and my career, I first feel like it's necessary to understand the scale of cultural competency. What's really awesome about this scale is that I first learned about it at an international agricultural education conference in Pennsylvania, and am continuing to learn and grow in my understanding of this scale through a classroom experience that I have over at Norman Hall. So let me share some of this with you to help see how this will apply to my time in the classroom. When we think about cultural competency that will be able to heighten and make even more efficient the intercultural exchanges in our workplace or in the classroom, we first see where we reside on this scale of cultural competency. Each of us lie on it somewhere. Let's see where we are. At the far end, farthest away from the end goal of cultural competency, would be the concept that my culture is better than yours, no matter what. When we look at the second point, this is where we begin to say, we're all the same. There's no difference. There is no black, there is no white, there is no gay, lesbian, or straight. There is no difference between where we are across the world. We're simply all the same, and I want to be colorblind. Now, that's not really that great either, because the differences that we have change our perspectives and make us unique. So, moving along to the next step of cultural competency would be where we begin to acknowledge different cultures. This is what's really neat whenever people begin to move into that specific area. We get to say, hey, that's really cool that you have that. That's neat that you're from where it is that you're from. And being able to see students acknowledge one another's backgrounds in a classroom, facilitate that environment as an educator, would be beneficial not only to me as a teacher, making more of a difference in these students' lives, but for those students to be able to go into the community or into their future workplace and see the same thing. But as we move along, even closer to cultural competency is a final stage wherever we see that we don't just acknowledge differences, we don't just acknowledge our diversity, but we celebrate it. And we are able to create a synergistic outcome between the individuals and the groups that we have within a classroom and create something even better because we are different. So that leads into exactly how I can apply this in the classroom by looking at first with our curriculum. How can I create an inclusive set of curriculum and apply that whether I'm teaching greenhouse technology, agri-science, or aquaculture? It's being able to present examples that aren't just from small town USA, but that are from across the world. If we're looking at greenhouse management structures, maybe that's seeing an irrigation system in France, an irrigation system in Jamaica, and one in sub-Saharan Africa. They would all be very, very different, and we could examine how. Because corporations are hiring students with even more global experiences than ever. So however I can present a beginning to a global experience for a student domestically in my classroom, that helps those students understand other cultures and be able to interact even better than ever. And I can go on, being able to see how I can set those classroom expectations for students to be accepting of one another. How I can facilitate setting them into groups with people who may not be of the same background so that they can learn and work together to be able to hopefully carry that into the future as well. Even more so, I'm particularly blessed because in the field of agricultural education, I don't just stay in the classroom, but I get to go out into the community because of supervised agricultural experiences and the FFA. So being able to interact with a diverse array of people, whether that's in the corporate world, in a small group setting with some individual players in the community leadership, or whether that's looking at administration, I know that I can set an example for my students by being accepting and acknowledging. This is what I believe intercultural competency and intercultural exchange is, and how I can carry it into the classroom to better prepare my students for the real world. Before I can really explain how it is that I'm preparing for my future career in agricultural education, I'd like to share a little bit about my philosophy on this preparation. Check out the balance I've drawn. So if you see this, there are two sides equally weighted, and they're different. We've got circles on one side and squares on the other. These both represent the experiences that I hope to have to prepare myself as an educator. They'll be different, but balanced, so that I can be able to weigh out the situation as necessary and make real-time decisions when I'm in the workplace. I like to achieve this balance by making sure that I am involved in 4 sectors of experiences. One is simply in the classroom, what I'm going through and studying here at the University of Florida. The second is how I'm engaging in the classroom, out in the community in middle and high schools. How I'm involved in extracurriculars that are related to education, and how I am achieving and receiving internships so that I can gain career skills that directly relate to my future career. So let's roll down the list real quickly, and I'll share with you what I'm doing in each of those quadrants. First off, in the classroom, I'm taking not only agricultural education classes in my major, which have to do with teaching methods, curriculum design, assessment, and program planning, but also educational courses over at Norman that we talked about earlier. So some of these classes look at diverse learners, how we can incorporate content literacy into the classroom. Because as an ag teacher, we're not just teaching cows, sows, and plows, but also encouraging our students to become better readers, writers, mathematicians, and scientists that are curious and ready to learn. Also, we're learning about content. So I'm taking courses like meat science, animal science, and greenhouse so I can be prepared with the knowledge and skills that I can communicate to a future student. Now, not just the classrooms that I'm sitting in and learning, but I'm also trying to engage in classrooms, which is that second quadrant we have. So some of the classrooms that I'm trying to engage in locally are at Westwood Middle School, where I help tutor and teach algebra, which is a challenge for me, so I'm trying to help learn how to teach something complex in my mind to a student who's also struggling. It's really been a learning experience, just like the experience that I also have teaching students at Greenhouse Kids. It's a local church in town, but just being able to interact and build relationships with those students over time is helping to prepare me for my future students. So looking into the third section, how my extracurricular activities really integrate into this model of education. I think about 2 extracurricular activities. One of those activities is with my sorority, Alpha Chi Omega, where I serve on the executive board as a new member educator. This is where, in the spring and the fall, I'm helping to educate girls who are coming into our sorority wanting to become strong young women who we want to represent our name. And so that's managing these individuals, helping educate and care for them, and helping them start out their time on campus. Also, I think about YLC, the Young Leaders Conference put on by the Student Government Board at the University of Florida, of which I was the curriculum development position on their executive board as well. This was an experience for me to take a concept, develop curriculum, and then help train others on delivering that curriculum to be successful and teach students. Because curriculum is a key part in every educator's life. So looking towards that fourth quadrant, some of the internships or on-the-job experiences that I've had are really wide-ranging, but they focus mostly on facilitation and on classroom teaching. Through facilitating for the National Leadership Conference for State Officers, Washington Leadership Conference, and other conferences within the national and state FFA organizations, I've become experienced in speaking in front of small and large groups of students on a range of topics. I also look at internships I've had, like volunteering with AgriCorps to do international pilot research for a year-long program that is started in Ghana. I spent my time in Liberia, but it was similar in that I was teaching science, agriculture, and leadership to a group of Liberian students ranged in age from 7 to 27. No joke. It was an experience and helped me learn how to communicate differently and individually with learners. One specific internship that I've already held that was a unique experience for me was actually at the Tennessee FFA Association in Nashville. I worked for the Tennessee Department of Education and was able to see inside on how to plan a teachers conference. I was able to benefit from the workshops that I was hiring individuals to come speak at because I got to sit in and listen too, which was really cool. I also got to understand the paperwork that teachers had to go through to make sure that their day-to-day operations work right and that they're getting paid as they should. I also know that because of my experience at Tennessee FFA, I'm understanding how teachers interact with state officials and how they see at the state level how FFA, SAE, and classroom instruction all come together under one blanket. Again, it's about balance. I'm excited to see how the balance I've tried to seek in preparation for my future career and specific internships will benefit me in becoming a better classroom teacher. A brand. It's something so identifiable that even when you see a rudimentary drawing of its label, it automatically comes to mind. When you've got the golden arches, I hope that you're thinking of McDonald's and those great French fries, maybe even a McFlurry. When you see a check mark, I hope you're thinking about Nike. That's what I thought of, and some brand new running shoes or a tennis racket. Now, if you're in the South, like me, where I grew up, and you're asking someone for a drink at a restaurant, you automatically say Coke, even if you really want a Dr. Pepper. You've got to make the waitress ask twice. But why is that? It's because the brand is so recognizable. Coca-Cola put its foot down initially and flooded the market. Same with McDonald's and fast food. Same with Nike and sportswear. I hope that my brand of Live Generously puts its foot down and makes itself known. So when people see my face or see my name on a bulletin board, they know that I correlate with living generously. So I know what I hope people think of when they hear the words live generously, but let me share what a few of my classmates were quoted as saying whenever I presented it for them. So one of my friends, Alyssa, said living generously means serving others no matter who they are or where they're from. Julia said living generously means putting yourself second every time. And Jacob, he said living generously was not stopping until you've given your all. Just like an athlete, whenever they're running a sprint, they don't stop or slow down until they have nothing left to give. And I know that in a lot of professions, a brand is something that you would put on your resume or a way that you'd make yourself more polished and clean to an interviewer. It's how they want to be seen on paper. But for me, in my field, because of how much I'm interacting with individuals, I want my brand to be something that's felt, not just read or heard. I hope that living generously will mean to my students and to their parents and to those community members that I'm willing to give my all every time. Educator. First off, I know that as an ag teacher, your time isn't just in the classroom or even in the lab. A lot of it's spent with your FFA chapter and in your community at different events. So as an ag teacher, you've got to know how to plan some of those events as well. My time at IFAS as a student event planner really allowed me to hone not only the technical skills of simply booking rooms, making calls, seeing what's necessary from security to food, and being able to gauge who should be invited and what those different means of invitation are. But it's also simply thinking large scale. What do I need to make this a successful event? That's certainly a skill that I'll be able to take with me on my journey as an ag teacher. More broad, I know that communication is something that is very available in every single workplace. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not so good. I hope as an ag teacher that I will be able to exemplify good communication not only in its mode, but in its frequency. Being able to differentiate between communication avenues of texting, emailing, phone calling, or a time that really needs a face-to-face interaction is a skill that I've learned when working with peers, professors, and employers during my college time. Not only the avenue and mode of communication, but also the frequency of communication is important as well. If we've got a time crunch and need to get something done, knowing that it's okay to be more persistent is just fine. On an even larger scale, something that people might miss sometimes is strategic planning. I know that as a student, your strategic plan might be something a little bit individualized because it's your own plan. Where will I be in 5 years? Where will I be in 10 years? I can't count the number of times that I've heard that question. But knowing that I need to sit down and logically think out where I will be and what I need to go do to get there is important. It'll be the same with my FFA chapter and agricultural education program. Learning how to strategically plan not only individually, but when working with colleagues and students is key to running a successful program. And lastly, if not most importantly, I've learned how to be coachable. That's from listening to employers at some of the internships that I've held. Professors, being able to receive their feedback and not take it personally, but take it as an opportunity to grow and better myself and the service that I hope to have towards others. Being coachable from people that are my age as well. What do my peers have to say? What do they think? What do they know that can help me help them or someone else? Learning how to be coachable and receive and give good feedback is extremely important, especially when I'll be working with students and learning how to receive information from them in the classroom, but also give them feedback as well. But the concept of continual growth is something that I'm grasping and is necessary to have a good coachable individual in it. I'm not saying I'm perfect here, but I know that these skills, especially knowing that being coachable and having continuous growth is important, will allow me to seek out future opportunities to grow, to become more coachable, and to provide a better experience for my students. I'm so excited that I got to share with you some of the experiences that I've had, how I want to brand myself, some of the ways that I know that cultures will be present and how I can approach and utilize those in my classroom, and simply the excitement I have for my career field of agricultural education. I can't wait to make a positive difference in the lives of my students. Thank you.